When a billionaire's car crash left him paralyzed, his wife didn't stay to wipe his tears. She divorced him and married his doctor instead. But she had no idea the man she betrayed would rise again, and when he did, her world would never be the same. That man was Ethan Cole, one of America's youngest self-made billionaires, a man who built a business empire from nothing and became a symbol of ambition, wealth, and power. Reporters called him the Golden Visionary. His story inspired thousands. His marriage to Clara, a former model turned philanthropist, looked like a dream come true. They lived in a glass mansion on the hills of Los Angeles, overlooking the city lights. To everyone who saw them, they were the perfect couple, handsome, rich, and madly in love. But no one knew that perfection doesn't last forever. That night, the sky was dark, the rain heavy, and the city smelled like wet asphalt. Ethan and Clara were driving home from a charity gala in downtown LA. Clara wore a silver gown that shimmered under the streetlights, and Ethan kept glancing at her, smiling like a man who thought nothing could ever go wrong. "Ethan," she said softly, resting her hand on his. "After this quarter ends, let's go somewhere quiet. Maybe Hawaii? Just the two of us." He chuckled. "You got it. I'll have the jet ready." Those were the last calm words they shared before the crash. Out of nowhere, a drunk driver in a black SUV swerved into their lane. Headlights flared. Tires screamed. Metal twisted. And then darkness. When Ethan opened his eyes, he wasn't in his car anymore. He was in a white hospital room in Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, Los Angeles. The faint sound of machines surrounded him. His throat felt dry. His body ached all over. He tried to move, but his legs wouldn't respond. "Clara," he whispered weakly. She appeared beside the bed, her eyes red, mascara smudged. "I'm here," she said, holding his hand tightly. "Why can't I feel my legs?" he asked, voice shaking. Her lips parted, but she didn't answer. Then Dr. Adrian Blake, the neurosurgeon in charge, walked in. Tall, calm, with the kind of voice that made you trust him instantly. "Mr. Cole," he began gently, "you suffered a severe spinal injury. We did everything we could, but you may not be able to walk again." The words shattered Ethan's world. For the first few weeks, Clara stayed by his side, bringing flowers, whispering prayers, telling him everything would be okay. But soon the visits grew shorter. The calls stopped coming. The love in her eyes began to fade. And then came Adrian. He started visiting Ethan more often, talking about treatments, offering comfort, even bringing coffee for Clara. Ethan thought they were just being kind. He trusted them both, the man who saved his life and the woman who swore she loved him. But one morning, 3 months later, that trust was gone forever. Ethan had been moved to a private recovery suite with a large glass window facing the hospital garden. That morning, as sunlight poured in, he rolled himself toward the window and froze. There, under a palm tree, stood Clara. She was laughing, smiling. Her hand rested gently on Adrian's arm. And then Adrian leaned in and kissed her. Ethan's heart stopped. His world went silent. For a long time he just stared, hoping it was some cruel dream. But it wasn't. 3 weeks later, Clara filed for divorce. Her message was cold and short. "I can't live like this anymore, Ethan. I need to move on." Ethan didn't fight. He simply signed the papers. Months later, the news broke everywhere. Clara Cole marries Dr. Adrian Blake, the man who treated her billionaire ex-husband. Social media exploded. Headlines called it a love born from tragedy. But for Ethan, it was betrayal beyond words. Yet deep inside, as he sat in that wheelchair staring at the city skyline, a spark reignited. He began therapy not just to walk again but to rise again. Because the man they thought was broken was preparing for a comeback no one could imagine. Are you enjoying this story so far? Tell us the country you're watching from in the comments. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. The days after the divorce felt like slow death for Ethan Cole. The once powerful billionaire who commanded entire boardrooms now struggled to even lift himself out of bed. His mansion in Beverly Hills, once filled with laughter and light, now felt like a cold prison. The staff spoke in whispers, afraid to look at him. Everywhere he turned, he saw reminders of Clara, her perfume lingering in the hallway, her dresses still hanging in the closet, her smile framed in the photos she never bothered to take down before she left. He deleted every picture of her. But he couldn't delete the pain. On television, he saw her new life unfolding like a movie he never agreed to star in. Clara and Dr. Adrian Blake, the man who treated him, were now being celebrated as the city's new power couple. Magazines called their story beautiful. Headlines screamed, "From tragedy to true love, the doctor who healed her heart." Every time Ethan saw their faces, something twisted inside him, not just anger but shame. He remembered the way Clara used to touch his face and whisper, "I'll love you no matter what happens." Now she was holding another man's hand. But beneath all that pain, something else began to grow, a quiet fire. One night, sitting by the large glass window that overlooked Los Angeles, Ethan whispered to himself, "They took everything from me, but I'll get it back. Every single thing." That was the moment his comeback began. Ethan hired a private physical therapist, a tough ex-Marine named Dylan Ross. Dylan didn't treat him like a billionaire or a victim. He treated him like a soldier in training. "Get up, Cole," Dylan would shout every morning. "You built a billion-dollar company, you can lift your own damn leg." The sessions were brutal. Sweat poured down Ethan's face as he fought through the pain, his muscles screaming, his arms trembling. There were days he wanted to give up, days he fell to the floor and cried in silence. But each time he remembered Clara's last words, "I can't live like this anymore." And that pain pushed him forward. 3 months later, Ethan could stand with help. 6 months later, he took his first shaky step with crutches. The doctors called it a miracle. He called it revenge in progress. But while his body healed, his empire was falling apart. Without him in charge, investors were pulling out. His board members were fighting. And to make things worse, Adrian, his ex-wife's new husband, had joined a rival medical technology company that was now competing directly with Ethan's own corporation. It was no longer personal. It was war. Ethan returned to his office for the first time in a year, walking slowly with a cane. His employees froze when they saw him. The man they thought would never recover was standing tall, scarred but not broken. "Let's get back to work," he said simply. That day, Ethan began rebuilding from the ground up. He fired everyone who had betrayed him during his recovery and replaced them with new, loyal faces. He launched a new innovation project under his company, one that would crush his rivals and rewrite the tech industry. And while the world cheered his return, Clara and Adrian were living a very different life. At first, their marriage looked perfect, lavish dinners, social media photos, and expensive trips. But soon cracks began to show. Adrian's medical practice started losing investors, many of whom mysteriously pulled out overnight. His private clinic struggled. Rumors began spreading that his research was being sabotaged. Clara noticed the change in him. The confident, charming doctor had become angry and paranoid. "What's going on, Adrian?" she asked one night as he threw papers across the room. "Someone's destroying my career," he snapped. "Someone with money and power. Someone who knows every investor I've ever worked with." Clara froze. A strange fear crept into her chest. "You don't think Ethan would?" "Ethan?" Adrian laughed bitterly. "He's a cripple, Clara. What can he do?" But deep down she wasn't sure anymore. Because one morning, as she scrolled through her phone, a photo stopped her cold. It was a news article. "Ethan Cole returns, the billionaire is back on his feet and back in power." The picture showed him at a business conference in New York, taller, sharper, more confident than ever. He was smiling, shaking hands with world leaders. For a moment, Clara's heart pounded. She zoomed in on his face. He looked different, colder, stronger. And though he didn't say her name in the article, the message was clear. He was coming back. Ethan Cole's return to the business world sent shockwaves through the media. Every major outlet in America had his face plastered across their screens. The billionaire who beat the odds, Ethan Cole walks again. After a tragic accident and public divorce, he's back stronger than ever. What they didn't know was that behind the cameras, behind the polished smile and tailored suit, Ethan wasn't just rebuilding his empire, he was orchestrating something much darker. He wanted justice. Not the kind that came from courts or apologies, but the kind that made the guilty feel what he felt, powerless. 4 months, Ethan had quietly studied everything about Adrian Blake's medical company. He knew their weaknesses, their debts, their fragile partnerships. And through his vast connections he began pulling strings one by one. A call here. A meeting there. Silent investments under different names. Within weeks, Ethan's team began buying out the suppliers Adrian's company relied on. Then, without warning, those suppliers cut their contracts. By the end of the quarter, Adrian's business was bleeding money. Clara, unaware of the full truth, watched her husband slowly unravel. "You're not sleeping," she said one morning as she found him sitting on the edge of the bed, staring into space. "What's going on?" Adrian rubbed his face tiredly. "It's Cole. I don't know how, but everything's collapsing around me. Investors are gone. Projects canceled. It's like he's pulling the strings behind the scenes." Clara's heart raced. "You said he couldn't do anything." "I was wrong." Adrian's voice cracked. "He's doing something and it's working." Meanwhile, Ethan stood by the window of his Manhattan penthouse, looking down at the city below. His assistant, Rachel, entered quietly with a report in hand. "Sir," she said, "another one of Adrian Blake's contracts just fell through. The company's expected to file for bankruptcy by next quarter." Ethan didn't smile. He simply nodded. "Good. But we're not done." Rachel hesitated. "Sir, may I ask something? Why not just move on? You're back, your company's thriving again, the world adores you. Why keep going after them?" Ethan turned to her, his eyes cold but calm. "Because they didn't just leave me, Rachel. They buried me. I was alive, but they treated me like I was already dead. This isn't about money. It's about truth." That truth, however, was about to get much more complicated. One evening, Ethan received an unexpected message from a private investigator he'd hired months ago to dig into Adrian's background. The message contained a file with one line that made Ethan's heart freeze. Adrian Blake's mother, Margaret Blake, was once married to Henry Cole. Henry Cole, Ethan's late father. At first, Ethan thought it was a mistake. But the documents were real. Marriage records, photos, and even old newspaper clippings confirmed it. It turned out that decades ago, before Ethan was born, his father had a brief marriage that ended in secrecy. The woman he divorced moved away, changed her last name, and had a son. Adrian Blake wasn't just his enemy. He was his half-brother. Ethan sank into his chair, stunned. Everything around him blurred. He thought back to every moment, the hospital room, the betrayal, the kiss, the wedding. All this time, the man who took his wife wasn't just the doctor who treated him. He was blood. For a long time, Ethan sat in silence, trying to process it. Anger, confusion, and disbelief collided inside him. How could his father have hidden something like this? And how could fate twist things so cruelly? He called Rachel into the room. "Cancel the next meeting," he said quietly. "Everything okay, sir?" she asked. Ethan looked out the window, voice low. "Nothing about this is okay anymore." Across town, Clara walked into Adrian's office and found him sitting in the dark, a drink in hand. "Adrian, we need to talk," she said softly. "You're scaring me." He turned to her slowly, eyes bloodshot. "Do you know what it's like to lose everything, Clara? To wake up every morning wondering who's pulling the strings behind your back?" Clara's voice trembled. "Maybe it's time to let it go. Maybe we should leave the city, start fresh." But before Adrian could respond, his phone buzzed. He looked at the screen and his face went pale. "What is it?" Clara asked. He turned the phone so she could see. It was a message from an unknown number. "You took my wife. You took my life. Now I'm taking back everything." Clara's hand flew to her mouth. Her eyes widened. "Oh my God," she whispered. "He knows." Adrian stood up, pacing. If he wants a war, he's going to get one. But deep down they both knew this wasn't just business anymore. This was blood. Are you enjoying this story so far? Tell us your country in the comments, globe showing Europe, Africa, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. The truth haunted Ethan Cole like a ghost he couldn't escape. Adrian Blake, the man who stole his wife, his peace, and his pride, wasn't just his enemy. He was his half-brother. Ethan spent nights pacing through his penthouse, staring at the city lights below, trying to make sense of everything. Every time he closed his eyes, flashes of his father's smile came back. Had his father known? Did he ever plan to tell him? The pain was deeper now. It wasn't just betrayal, it was family. He wanted revenge, but suddenly revenge didn't feel as simple anymore. Days later, Ethan received an invitation that shocked him. It was from Clara. "Ethan, I know you probably hate me, but I need to talk. It's about Adrian. Please meet me tomorrow at the Belmont Hotel, 6 p.m. This isn't about the past. It's about something bigger." Ethan almost tore the letter apart. But curiosity and something he didn't want to admit made him go. The next evening he arrived at the Belmont Hotel, walking slowly with his cane. Clara was already there, sitting by the window, her beauty still haunting but now touched with sadness. When she saw him, she stood up, tears forming. "Ethan." "Clara," he said calmly. "What do you want?" She took a deep breath. "I know you found out about Adrian's mother. I know you know the truth." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Did he tell you?" "No. I found the documents in his office last night," she said softly. "He doesn't know that I know. Ethan, he's not the same man anymore. He's angry, paranoid, dangerous. He keeps talking about you, saying you ruined his life. He's losing control." Ethan remained silent. His heart was beating faster, but his face stayed still. "Ethan," she continued, her voice breaking, "I know I hurt you. I made the biggest mistake of my life. But I can't let this end in blood. Please, stop whatever you're planning." Ethan looked at her, really looked at her for the first time in years. She was thinner now, her once glowing smile gone. "You walked out when I couldn't walk," he said quietly. "You left me when I needed you most. And now you're asking me to save the man who replaced me?" Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I deserve that. I know I do. But Adrian, he's still your brother. Whether you hate him or not, he's blood." Ethan turned away, gripping his cane tightly. "Blood doesn't make you family, Clara. Loyalty does." He walked out before she could say another word. The next night, Ethan arrived at his corporate headquarters for a late meeting. But as his car pulled into the parking lot, he noticed something strange. His driver's side window cracked slightly, and the security lights flickered. Before he could react, a voice called out from the shadows. "Ethan." He turned. Adrian Blake stood there, eyes red, hands shaking, holding a gun. "I warned you," Adrian said, his voice trembling. "You took everything from me. My company, my name, everything." Ethan stayed calm. "You did that to yourself, Adrian. Don't act innocent." Adrian shouted. "You bought out my investors. You destroyed me." Ethan took a slow step forward. "You destroyed yourself when you touched what wasn't yours. You didn't just betray me, you betrayed your own blood." Adrian froze. His face twisted. "You know." "Yes," Ethan said quietly. "Henry Cole was my father. And yours." Adrian's hand trembled. "No, that's a lie." "It's the truth," Ethan said. "We're brothers, Adrian. Half-brothers. The same blood you're about to spill runs through both of us." For a long moment the air went still. The sound of traffic in the distance faded. Adrian's eyes filled with confusion, anger, and pain. Then slowly his arm dropped. The gun fell to the ground with a metallic clink. He sank to his knees, breathing heavily. "All this time, I was destroying my own brother." Ethan sighed, stepping closer. "You didn't know. But now you do. And it's over. Walk away before you lose everything." Adrian looked up, tears in his eyes. "You already took everything." "No," Ethan said quietly. "I gave you a chance to stop." He turned and walked away, leaving Adrian kneeling in the cold night. A week later, Adrian's company officially filed for bankruptcy. He and Clara disappeared from the public eye. Some said they moved to another state. Others said they split up. Ethan, on the other hand, became a legend, a symbol of strength and redemption. But behind the success, he carried scars that no one could see. One evening, standing on his balcony overlooking New York City, Ethan spoke softly to himself. "They broke me, but they also built me." He didn't seek revenge anymore. He didn't need to. The universe had already done its work. Clara's betrayal taught him the price of blind love. Adrian's jealousy taught him the pain of hidden truth. And his own fall taught him something greater, that true power isn't about wealth or control. It's about forgiveness. He picked up his phone, opened a new message, and typed slowly. "Clara, I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace." He hit send. Then, for the first time in years, Ethan smiled, a genuine, quiet smile that reached his eyes. The world had taken everything from him, but he had taken back his soul. And that, more than revenge, was his greatest victory. What would you have done if you were them? Forgive them or destroy them completely? Tell us in the comments below and drop your country so we know where you're watching from. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe because more powerful emotional stories like this are coming your way every week on Billionaire Heartbreak Stories.